Growing up, I was always the responsible one. While other kids were out partying, I was studying. While my friends were figuring things out, I had a plan. I worked hard in school, graduated with honors, built a resume I was proud of. I did everything right. At least, that's what I thought. Because the moment I stepped into the real world, nothing made sense anymore. Every job application turned into a dead end. At first, I blamed the job market. Everyone says it's competitive. Everyone says it takes time. So I stayed patient. I applied to dozens of jobs, then hundreds. I practiced interviews, improved my answers, worked on my confidence. But no matter what I changed, the results stayed the same. Rejection. It didn't matter how well the interview went. It didn't matter how qualified I was. Something was happening behind the scenes. Something I couldn't see. And the worst part? It didn't just affect my career. It started affecting my confidence, my mental health. I began to question everything. Was I not good enough? Was there something wrong with me that I couldn't see? Because when you hear no enough times, you start to believe it. But deep down, something felt off. Because this didn't feel like normal rejection. It felt targeted. Growing up, I was always the good daughter. The one who followed the rules. The one who didn't argue. The one who did everything right, or at least tried to. While other people my age were out making mistakes and figuring life out, I was focused. I stayed up late studying. I skipped parties. I chose responsibility over fun, every single time. Because I believed something simple. If I worked hard enough, my future would take care of itself. And for a while, it felt like that was true. I graduated near the top of my class. Built a strong resume. Did internships, volunteer work, everything employers say they want. On paper, I was exactly what companies were looking for. Driven. Disciplined. Reliable. Even my professors told me I'd have no problem finding a job. So when I started applying, I was confident. Not arrogant, just hopeful. Because I knew I had earned my place. And at first, everything seemed to go perfectly. I'd get interview calls quickly. Recruiters sounded excited. Hiring managers would smile, nod, and say things like, "You're exactly the kind of candidate we're looking for." I remember walking out of those interviews feeling proud. Like, finally, everything I worked for was about to pay off. But then, something strange started happening. A pattern I couldn't ignore. Every time I got close to being hired, something changed. Emails stopped coming. Calls went unanswered. Offers that felt guaranteed disappeared overnight. At first, I told myself it was normal. Maybe someone else had more experience. Maybe it's just bad timing. Maybe I need to try harder. So I did. I improved my answers. Practiced more. Applied to even more positions. But no matter what I changed, the outcome stayed exactly the same. And slowly, that confidence I once had started to crack. Because when the world keeps rejecting you, even when you've done everything right, you start to wonder if the problem is you. But deep down, there was this quiet feeling I couldn't shake. This wasn't normal. This didn't feel random. It felt like something or someone was working against me. That one sentence from the interviewer stayed in my head for days. "We were warned about you." Warned. Not evaluated. Not rejected. Warned. There's a big difference. Up until that moment, I kept telling myself this was just bad luck. A tough job market. Too much competition. Maybe I needed more experience. But now, that explanation didn't make sense anymore. Because this wasn't about my qualifications. This was about my reputation. And apparently, someone had already destroyed it. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a mix-up. Maybe someone else with my name had a record. Maybe there was an error in a background check. So I decided to check everything myself. I ordered a full background report. Criminal history. Employment verification. Credit report. I went through every single detail. Line by line. And everything came back clean. Exactly how it should be. No charges. No records. Nothing even close. Which meant one thing. This wasn't a system mistake. This was intentional. Someone was actively contacting these companies and telling them I had a criminal past. The more I thought about it, the more unsettling it became. Because this wasn't something a random stranger could do. They knew too much. They knew where I was applying. They knew when I had interviews. They knew exactly who to contact. Those weren't public details. Those were things I had only shared with a small circle of people. And suddenly, that circle didn't feel safe anymore. I started replaying every conversation in my head. Every time I mentioned an interview. Every time I shared an opportunity. Trying to figure out who had access to that information. And more importantly, who would actually use it against me. I kept trying to convince myself I was overthinking it. That there had to be another explanation. Because the truth I was starting to see didn't make sense. Not for a normal family. Still, I needed answers. So the next time I got an interview, I did something different. I told almost no one. Not my friends. Not extended family. Not even people who usually supported me. I kept everything private. Except my parents. Just like always. I casually mentioned the company name. The position. The date of the interview. Nothing unusual. Nothing suspicious. Just enough information. And then, I waited. 2 days later, my phone rang. It was the company. For a second, I felt hopeful. Maybe this time would be different. But the moment I heard the tone in her voice, I already knew. "Thank you for your time," she said politely, "but we've decided to move forward with other candidates." Same script. Same ending. But this time, I wasn't confused. I was certain. So instead of accepting it, I did something I had never done before. I asked a direct question. "Can I ask you something honestly?" I said. There was a short pause. "Of course," she replied. I took a breath. "Did someone contact you about me?" Silence. Long enough to confirm everything. Then she exhaled softly. "Yes, actually." My heart started racing. "Can you tell me who?" Another pause. And then, the answer I never wanted to hear. "It was a man," she said carefully. "He said he was your father." In that moment, everything became painfully clear. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't a mistake. The person destroying every opportunity one had was someone I trusted my entire life. For a long time, I just sat there, staring at my phone. My father. Out of everyone in my life, he was the last person I expected. But the more I replayed everything in my head, the more it started to make a twisted kind of sense. The constant questions. The doubt in his voice whenever I talked about my career. The way he always said, "You're not ready yet." I had ignored those signs before. But now, they felt different. Still, I couldn't confront him without something solid. I needed proof. Not guesses. Not assumptions. Something undeniable. So I came up with a plan. I created a fake opportunity. A company that didn't exist. A position that sounded real enough to believe. I even set up a separate phone number, one that I could control. Then, like I always did, I told my parents about it. I made it sound important. Exciting. Like this could finally be the job. And then, I waited. 2 days passed. Nothing. 3 days. Still nothing. For a moment, I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe I had misjudged everything. Maybe this whole situation was just in my head. And then, on the 4th day, my phone rang. Unknown number. My heart started pounding instantly. I answered, keeping my voice steady. "Hello, this is HR." There was a brief pause on the other end. And then I heard it. A voice I had known my entire life. Calm, confident, controlled. "My name is..." He started, then cleared his throat. "I'm calling about a candidate you're considering." I gripped the phone tighter, forcing myself to stay silent. "I think you should be careful," he continued. "She has a criminal background. She's not who she says she is." Every word hit like a punch. But I didn't interrupt. I let him keep talking. Let him build his own lie. Because every second was being recorded. Every accusation. Every detail. Every betrayal. When the call finally ended, my hands were shaking. But this time, it wasn't from confusion. It was clarity. I didn't need to guess anymore. I didn't need to wonder. The truth was right there. Recorded. Undeniable. And for the first time in months, I wasn't the one losing control anymore. That night, I barely slept. I just kept replaying the recording over and over again. Every word. Every lie. Every second of it. I kept asking myself the same question. Why? But no matter how many times I listened, the answer never came. So the next morning, I stopped trying to understand. And decided to confront it. I didn't call. I didn't text. I just drove straight to my parents' house. The same house I grew up in. The same place that was supposed to feel safe. When I walked in, everything looked normal. My mom was in the kitchen. My dad was sitting at the table, reading like he always did. For a second, it almost felt unreal. Like nothing had happened. "Hey," my mom said casually, smiling. "How did your interview go?" That question. It hit differently now. I didn't answer. Instead, I slowly took out my phone, pressed play, and placed it on the table. At first, they didn't react. But the moment my father's voice filled the room, everything changed. "I think you should be careful. She has a criminal background." The color drained from his face instantly. My mom's smile disappeared. Neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. They just sat there, frozen, listening to the truth unfold. When the recording ended, the silence was suffocating. I looked straight at him. "No more lies," I said quietly. "Explain it." At first, he shook his head, like denying it was still an option. "That's not," he started. But the words didn't even make it out. Because we both knew it was useless. The proof was right there. Clear, real, unavoidable. Finally, he exhaled slowly and leaned back in his chair. And for the first time in my life, he didn't look in control anymore. "We were just trying to help you," he said. "Help me?" I almost laughed. "By telling people I'm a criminal?" I asked. My voice didn't shake. It didn't break. Because something inside me had already shifted. For the first time, I wasn't the one seeking their approval. I was demanding the truth. And this time, they had nowhere left to hide. For a moment after I asked that question, no one spoke. The silence felt heavy, uncomfortable, like the truth was sitting right there in the room, waiting to be acknowledged. My dad avoided eye contact. My mom crossed her arms, already preparing a defense. And then, it started. "We were trying to protect you," my mom said first, her tone sharp. "Protect me from what?" I asked calmly. "From failing," she replied instantly. "From making choices you're not ready for." I felt something shift inside me. Not anger. Not even sadness. Just clarity. So instead, I said slowly, "You decided to destroy every opportunity one had?" My dad finally spoke, his voice quieter now. "You don't understand how the real world works," he said. "We were trying to slow you down, give you time." "By telling people I'm a criminal?" I repeated. Neither of them answered. Because there was no good answer. Only control. That's when it hit me. This was never about helping me. This was about them not trusting me to live my own life. About them needing to stay in control, even if it meant breaking me in the process. I took a deep breath. And in that moment, I made a decision. Not out of emotion, but out of certainty. "I'm done," I said quietly. They both looked at me confused. "With what?" my mom asked. "With this," I replied. "With you controlling my life." For the first time, I wasn't asking for permission. I was setting a boundary. And they could feel it. Because this time, I meant it. I moved out within a week. No arguments. No explanations. Just distance. And for the first time in years, I felt in control of my own life. I used that recording when needed. Cleared my name. Rebuilt everything from scratch. A few months later, I finally got the job I deserved. Not because someone gave me a chance, but because no one could lie about me anymore. And that's when I realized something powerful. Sometimes, the biggest obstacle in your life isn't failure. It's the people who refuse to let you succeed. And the moment you walk away from them, that's when your real life begins.